Welcome to Scoop World Owners Maryland Game Week. We're going to break down the Terrapins a little bit. They have a lot of talent. They're a very good team. They should be ranked in the top 25. It's a joke that they're not. Strength schedule withstanding, they are a very, very good club. They've taken us to the mat a couple times out at Maryland. We've waxed them at home. So it'll be interesting to see what team shows up. But they do have a veteran quarterback, a lot of talent. These guys are scoring. We're going to show some of the creative stuff they do on offense and why we got to be at our best on defense to stop it. We're also going to talk about kind of the silly season for recruiting. There's a lot of kids getting tampered with right now in the portal. They're not in the portal yet, but people reaching out through back channels. And also, what teams could we be going after? What recruiting classes could we be going after? The Florida Gators seem to be right in the sights of Ohio State right now. A lot of smoke around that program. And, when these coaches are on the hot seat, some of these kids don't want to show up. If Billy Napier is the hottest seat in town next year, a lot of these kids aren't going to want to be there for when he gets whacked and you don't know who your coach is going to be year two. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But first, as always, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, this show is a blast to do. We appreciate you guys each and every night. If you enjoy this content, leave us a like, click subscribe, and also click that little alert bell so we get a little alert every time. You guys get an alert every time we go live. Again, we appreciate your comments. Shout out where you guys are watching from. And let me know, what is your key to the game against Maryland? For me, it's affecting Toa Vailoa, or Tua. It's not Tua, it's Tua's brother, but he's a really good player. He'd start for Alabama easily this year, so we're going to get into that. But I think stopping and affecting this quarterback is Talia Tunga Vailoa is an absolute monster. We got to stop him. So Nevada, this is kind of a funky team, Maryland. They're a team that could... they remind me kind of Illinois back in the day when they were super talented and they could lose to, Rutgers, or they could beat Michigan in the same day, the same class. These guys, they're kind of front runners, but man, they waxed Indiana. And it's amazing. The offensive coordinator got fired right after the game, but Indiana gave up like 44 points. So I don't want to clean the whole house out. But what are your thoughts on the Terrapins?
Yeah, I think you described them well. They're a team. They're a dangerous team in that they, their ups are really really high and their downs are really really low. But if you catch them on a good day, they can play with anybody. And so but Ohio State. The good news is Ohio State's aware of that. It's a home game. We're coming off a bye. There's no way that we're overlooking an undefeated Maryland team. And an undefeated Maryland team that, frankly, gave us a lot of problems last year, and a lot of guys remember that. So I think there's some extra motivation right now with Gaddis being there. So I think the boys will be ready. It's clear that Ryan Day is trying to, tweak a few things this week. They're working on their short yardage sets, which, has kind of been the big elephant in the room for all of us, as we're well aware. They've been working on spreading them out a little bit more, trying to do a little bit more with some blocking angles and some other interesting things in short yardage, which I think has been long overdue. And defensively, focusing on third down, fourth down, and stopping big plays. And that's been kind of the formula for them all year. As I mentioned, I believe it was yesterday, they're one of only 3 teams in college football that hasn't allowed a play from scrimmage of over 40 yards. And that's a concerted effort by this defense to play a more disciplined style of defense. And what's the result's going to be? There's going to be a little less sacks. There's going to be a little less of some of the gaudy statistics, because they're really trying to focus on cage rushing, staying in lanes, keeping people contained, not allowing people to break out of the pocket, and trying to cut down on the big plays. And so far, so good. Mission accomplished as far as Knowles is concerned, and hopefully that this is going to be a huge challenge for him this week.
Yeah, I think Jim Knowles has done fantastic work. I mean, he's a big guy in effort. He's really big on what have you done for me lately, because guys can have a lot built up, man. But if they don't show up to work and they don't show up to play, man, he's quick to give them the hook. And this will be a game, where discipline is going to be really critical. We're going to just show the first play on this little highlight reel of Maryland, Indiana. I want you guys to watch. This is a play action pass. They run a little read here. You watch this little motion up here. You see, watch this engagement right here between the slot and the nickel. And, he kind of bumps them. Again, this doesn't look like much of a run fake with these guys with high hats everywhere. But, you got the run fake here. You got the little work here. But, he's clearing out here. And this little engagement right here is interesting because it looks like a run block. So run block. Oh, then he gets loose. So all of a sudden, when you see this engagement, you take your eyes off of him. He's occupying the safety. And then all of a sudden, this guy who lacks his discipline, and again, we're big on discipline with Jim Knowles' defense, but he gets lost in space and oh my God, like this guy's scot-free because for a second, it looks like he's stock blocking. So again, that's something that, there's little gadgets you can do like that where, it doesn't look like there's much there, but if I think that when you play with, defensive players' minds a little bit, and they're so used to like, okay, this feels like a stock block. This feels like the receivers come off the ball. Feels like a run play. So I gotta, engage and get my eyes inside and look for where the running back is. And then all of a sudden, you do that for about 2 seconds, and all of a sudden you're gone. I mean, I think that's really creative stuff. It takes a lot of discipline to cover these guys. I think that their O-line's only given up 3 sacks all year, and they're about as good as ours is in terms of pass protection. Again, the strength of schedule is not fantastic by any stretch, but these guys they're a tough cover. I mean, they like to get guys out in space. The thing about Maryland is they've had fantastic athletes in their history. I mean, they had Stephon Diggs. I mean, guys that are like legitimate like NFL dudes out wide, Rakim Jarrett, and here they just like to get you out in space versus their athletes. This is like the easiest throw in the world. Little bubble. This is basically like an extended run play. You got your little lead guy here, catch, and then just hang on for dear life. Like this guy's got to hang in there. This guy triggers the wrong way, so when he picks the wrong angle, I mean, this guy puts his foot in the ground and he's got a couple different alleys. This guy's just got to engage, not hold. Again, that's a long block, but it's a touchdown. Again, like you have to be perfect here, and as a defensive player, and you get these guys out in space with a lot of grass and they're good athletes, like. You give up touchdowns, you give up a lot of yardage, and that's what they're doing right now. They're getting these guys out in space. I think that their offense is really at a high level. Nevada, what worries you about Maryland? Again, I think that the schedule is something that everyone's talking about is how poor their schedule is. But to me, we played these guys last year. It's not the exact same team, but the quarterback's back, and there's a lot of key players that are back, and they gave us all we wanted. So I think that that's something that kind of opens your eyes when you're a player on the team. But what worries about Maryland?
Well, like you said, they do a really good job, offensively of spreading you out. They don't play the game in a phone booth. They're not going to try to just out muscle you. They're going to try to get their athletes out in space and try to make you, make one mistake, lose discipline for one moment, whether it be on the edge, whether it be on a delay, whether they like the screen game. They'll, he doesn't like to run a lot, but when he gets outside, he'll run. I mean, I think he had like a 18, 19-yard run last week against Indiana. So he can scoot when given the availability. So it's just going to require playing a lot of discipline and not getting, impatient, because they're going to want to bring it down the field, make these 6-7 yard gains, after another. And you've got to stay disciplined every time, so you're not giving up those touchdowns. And it's going to be, incumbent upon Knowles to stay, patient. It's going to be incumbent upon Ohio State to stay patient defensively. And then offensively, to take advantage of our, we've got better athletes than they do. And we just got to make the game easy for ourselves. We've got to use our athletes in a way that can, take advantage of our opportunities. And, Kyle's got to have a good game. Kyle can't have an up and down game. He's got to have a good game. He's got to hit the throws that he needs to hit. And we can do that. This should be a comfortable game for Ohio State. But, I think Maryland's, a perfect type of challenge, a nice passing team. And I think it's going to be a great challenge for the OSU defense and a great opportunity for the OSU offense.
Yeah, I totally agree. So you watch here, and again, they get to this like they stack, so they're right on top of each other here, and it puts him in a terrible situation when these guys are both looking in the backfield, because all of a sudden, one guy's going to break this way, and then this guy's going to break right down the seam, and you see it. The safety's he's in la la land right here, so. Again, like this is good scheme. Again, I think that Indiana's a little overmatched, but I mean they held our guys down. They held down Emeka and Marvin. So again, like this isn't like a team. This is a common opponent, and they beat Indiana worse than they did. Now, granted, I don't know if Week 5 Ohio State versus Week 5 Indiana would have been the same result. Obviously we had a quarterback making his second career start, new O-line. I think that we're much better now, but like I said, these guys they've got dudes, and again, not every team that we play has guys that we would want, but these guys have legit skill guys. They have a great this quarterback should. If he didn't transfer out of Alabama and come to Maryland, he'd be starting there right now. And again, it feels like he's been in college for 10 years, but he's still there and he can lace it. And the quarterback's overpowered in college football. So he's a guy that we have to get after. We have to affect him. I'm going to show a scramble shortly, where he goes for a touchdown. But here, this is some of the pressure stuff they do. This is just a sim pressure. He's up here to occupy the guard. This is just a regular rush, and then you insert the fourth guy. So you walk these two linebackers up. This is a 3-down look. You got your 3-down guys right here. You've got your two linebackers walked up to occupy the guards, and then this is the guy who triggers. So all of a sudden, the guard's cut off guard, and he's the guy that makes the second. And again, this running back isn't he thinks that he's got him, but this is just great effort by the linebacker, because there's no way that this guard should get beat by this linebacker like this. There's just no way, but he does. And huge play, sack, pressure. So that's something that Justin Fry and the offensive line will be walking through a lot, just because, the sim pressure game is one of the new revolutions of college football. Sim pressure is basically where you show different looks from your linebackers and your D-line, but you still only bring 4 guys. So if you bring 5, it's a pressure. You bring 6, it's a blitz. So they're all different. And so Jim Knowles, he was up at the podium and he said, I blitz less now than I ever have in my career. And a lot of it is because he's doing a lot of simulated pressure. So it looks like he's blitzing, but he's not. He's only bringing 4 guys. So that was interesting. Nevada, what do you make of that? The fact that Jim Knowles announced to the world that he's blitzing less, is that kind of a setup? Because I'm sure that Maryland will watch that press conference and say, oh, they're blitzing less. And I'm sure they have self-scout, but he could drop, a 75% blitz game on these guys this week, which, it'd be nutty. But, what do you make of him saying he blitzes less today than he has at any point in his career?
I think it's a moment of honesty. I think Knowles is basically, kind of going away from his blitz scheme that he had to utilize with lesser athletes at, at places like Oklahoma State or Duke. He realizes with Ohio State, every time he blitzes, he exposes himself, to a higher percentage of the opportunities of a big play. And he's just bound and determined to cut out the big plays this year. And so what they're trying to compensate with it is, like you said, the simulated pressure, bringing 4, but just bringing 4 from different directions. Could be 3 from one side, 1 from another, 4 from one side, dropping everybody in the other side, bringing it from the middle, dropping the ends. So he's just trying to vary the looks to try to get some of the effects of the blitz without having to take the risks of the blitz. And I think, that's really kind of the story of the OSU defense this year, is how they've transformed from a defense last year that really gave up, a lot of big plays, obviously too many big plays, to this year they're just doing an outstanding job of stopping it. And we'll see if it continues this week. I'm hopeful that it will. I'm confident that it will. And I think Jim Knowles is committed to playing a style that makes it hard for other teams to have those big plays happen against them. And I think he's done a great job so far.
Yeah, I agree. And I talked about the Q run. Again, this is not going to be their main staple, but they run a read option here, and they're reading this offside defensive end here. As soon as his shoulders turn, he's absolutely going to keep it, because he's the chase guy. But when you run a read option, it's not like these guys are all getting blown 10 yards backwards off the ball. Like everyone's like, oh, the running game, we stink on short yardage. Why is that? Well, oh, we're not pushing guys off the ball. Well, these guys aren't pushing anybody off the ball. They're about a yard off the ball. But schematically, his shoulders are turned. So when you have a guy that can run and his shoulders are that way, unless he's Javon Curse, he's not catching them. So the back's here. Again, there's no push right here. But you basically have this guy who's ceiling and climbing, and you have this guy. Basically, you have 2 guys. These are the only 2 guys that really have to make a block right here. And then you get out on the edge, and you don't have to have a pancake, push them 10 yards down the field. You just got to get in the way. You get in the way of these guys, and you get an athlete at quarterback, and magically, he doesn't get touched. There's nobody even close. So that's why, we talk about constrain. This is constrain right here. This is constrain. This is, okay, this guy, is being occupied. No one's blocking him, but he's occupied by the running back, which is constraint. Again, we never pull the ball because we don't have guys that are athletic enough to pull it with. But basically, this is a running play that goes for a 20-yard touchdown where 2 guys have to block anybody. These guys just kind of muck it up in the middle, but nobody's getting their butts kicked back here. And here you get a little seal and a little seal, and it's touchdown. Again, I know, like, I wear people out with the running quarterback thing and the read option thing, but it's just so easy. Like, if you have 2 guys that can walk and chew bubble gum and get blocks on the perimeter, you got a 20-yard touchdown, and you don't have to worry about, oh, we get stopped on short yardage, and we're just gonna line up with 10 guys across the line of scrimmage and just, ram it right up there. It's like, you don't have to do that. I mean, it's so easy to do it. But the problem is we never pull the ball. And again, I'm not advocating to do it because I know Ryan's never going to do that because it's not his thing. But it's really hard to defend. I am very much pro being hard to defend on offense. Nevada, your thoughts on that? We talk about constraint, I think, on our message board on BuckeyeScoop.com more than probably anything in the universe. Like, what is constraint? How do you help people out in short yardage? How do you occupy people with basically a ghost, with a read? If you read a guy, it's kind of like blocking a guy. But talk a little bit about that and how easy that is.
Well, if you look at OSU's short yardage plays, I think they ran the stats on this, and it was something like 70 or 80% of it is tracked down at the backside. It's the backside guy that's crashing down, that's making the tackle. It's not, to your point, it's not that we're not blowing guys off the thing, or that Justin Fry's daughter isn't pointing to the hole and saying, my daddy says we're running right there, and they go through the hole. It's that you've got backside guys that are coming flat down the line and making plays from behind. And, those are extremely hard to block. But they're the way that if you run some constraint and you put some doubt in their mind that they can't do that, and when they do, like you said, you just showed a play where a guy who's not like a super, that's not Michael Vick running the read option right there. He went in untouched. And I think sometimes we just do it the hardest way. I would spread them out. I'd have one back, quarterback, run the zone read on that stuff, and I just don't know how people would stop it. I just don't know how people would stop it. It's just, I think when we bring things into the phone booth, and the good news for Ohio State fans is, I think Ryan Day has finally figured this out. I think they finally figured out that when they're dragging guys in to the box, that it's creating just a big mosh pit, and all the stuff that they're running right now is spread. So I'm convinced that they've figured it out, that they've seen the light, that they understand that these are the issues, and that they're going to have to be a little bit more creative in terms of how they're doing. So this isn't all hope is lost, and we're going to continue to do the same things. And I think, Ryan, it's taken them a while, but I think they finally figured out that we've been doing it and making it hard. And as you said, it doesn't need to be that hard. And I think this week's practice, they're doing it the easier way.
Yeah, and I think it's just coming to the realization, like when you play in the Big Ten or the SEC, or you play against a lot of guys who are as good as you. I'm not saying that Rutgers and Purdue are as good as you, but I mean, when you're playing against good players, like you're not just gonna like one-on-one drive block a really good player 10 yards backwards, like in some sort of romantic theory that people talk about, like, oh, well, our guys aren't drive blocking off the ball and not knocking guys back 10 yards. I'm like, well, you can do that in a double team, but like if you single block guys that are, just guys that are as good as you, like you're never going to get that big of a push. You might get a yard or two, but it's more, you have to stalemate them. Like in the old saying in offensive football is that offense wins all stalemates. So you just got to cover these guys up. I got another constrained play. This is a play that we've been running a little bit of. It's this, we call it topper bash. It's a double guard pull counter, guard tackle pull. But again, like the constraint here is, the D end is the guy who they're reading. And they might not be reading him because they hand this off, but you see Tagovailoa, he looks right at the end when he's handing it off. So he's looking at him. And again, this end hesitates for a millisecond, because if he's screaming off the edge to tackle for a loss, watch, he hesitates, kind of, he's like, why am I unblocked? Oh, I'm being read. So, and then that hesitation allows this guy to squeak out of here for a long run. This is good blocking by their offensive line as well. But this isn't like some magic bean or some guys just getting killed and mauled. I mean, nobody really gets pushed an inch off the line of scrimmage. Like you look at it's not like the line of scrimmage here changes dramatically. These guys just get covered up. The guard and tackle do a good job pulling on the counter, and then the running back hits the crease, So, but the constraint is on the backside where, Tagovailoa is just reading the end, and it freezes the end it only takes a millisecond. He doesn't have to stand there in concrete shoes. He just has to stay there for a second. And, again, I think that, I don't know what I would do if I was in the staff room. I would try to figure out somebody that we could run read option with. I don't know if that's Xavier Johnson, if it's a Mecca, someone who's already on the field, and kind of do like a wildcat look, because I think when you get down to that short red area and you have two guys that can really run it, Do it with Trey, do it with Beck, do it with one of you guys that are they're really sharp guys that can process the read option fast, because not everybody is great at reading the read option. Like Kenny Guyton is probably the best guy we ever had at it. Braxton was not great at it. It's just one of those things where it's kind of a talent, and if you can read it quick and make the correct read consistently, then it's a huge asset to the short yardage game plan. Because again, I think of all the things that Ohio State is probably pulling their hair out about the most, it's got to be the short yardage plan. And when I see them line up with, you know, 5 linemen, 6 linemen with Luke Montgomery, and then like 3 tight ends and a fullback, and I mean, it just, they do all these variations where it's like you might be 6 plus 3 tight ends and then a quarterback and a running back, and one of the tight ends is a fullback. So you get your 11 out there, but it's all this condensed space that, frankly, in my opinion, is really easy to defend. And based on our percentages of conversions, I think that the defenses think it's really easy to defend. So, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of things you can explore. Again, I just look at what other teams do. Like Travis Kelce will take a snap and run a quarterback sneak. Like Cade Stover, take a snap. Cade Stover was like all everything in high school. And again, this is the stuff that I would try, because as it gets deeper into the season and you got to start converting some of these certain shorts, like what else could you do to help the team out? What are your thoughts on that? What would you do to help out the short yardage game plan right now?
Well, like I said, I'd spread them out. I'd be running 4 wide, 1 back, single back quarterback, and and maybe that means you bring Devin Brown in, and Devin Brown is certainly capable of passing. It's not like he's just a run only quarterback or something like that. But put some packages in for him. I'd do something. But what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't go double tight end, fullback, run mass front into thing. I just wouldn't do it. I feel like that's 1973 calling, and if you're going to go that, then go full, full house backfield. Try to run it and just go there, or go with the the Bush push formation and just try to do that. Even though defenses are getting better about figuring out how to defend that, and teams are actually running some variations off of that, some fakes and some other things off of that as well, when people are committing to stop that thing. But you at least got to show it. You just got to show some variation. What's killing Ohio State is predictability by formation and down and distance in short yardage. That is what's killing them, because it's the same problem with different linemen, different running backs, different quarterbacks, different position coaches, but it's the same issue. And so the common denominator in that is scheme. You got to change the scheme, Ohio State. Otherwise, you're going to have the same problem. Doesn't matter if it's guards playing tackle, tackles playing guards, centers playing whipplers playing Dewans. Trey Henderson is soft. Stud is lazy and sleepy. Whatever narratives you guys want to come up with, it's the same problem every single time. So stop doing the same thing. And again, the good news, Ohio State's doing some different things this week, and that is indeed good news. Welcome news to me, and I think it'd be welcome news to Ohio State fans.
I love this. But Jack played quarterback. I mean, you're just looking for a guy that can take an under center snap and get it. I mean, I think that'd be great. This is another look. I love this triple option right here. So you got your read option here, and then you've got your slant. Again, this looks like this is just a full-on RPO. I mean, I think he's reading. Looks like he's reading here to here, and so when this guy steps up a little bit, man, this thing is wide open. Boom. And like, I love that. That's the 2nd and 1 call. That's like a fun time to call a play is 2nd and 1, because you got 2 downs basically to get 1 yard, maybe 3 downs to get 1 yard. But yeah, the creativity on this offense is interesting. I know it's Josh Gaddis, who everybody hates because he's kind of a douchebag, but these guys they run some interesting stuff, and I think Mike Locksley does a good job. I mean, I think Maryland's a tough job, but he's a great recruiter because of some of these guys he gets. But yeah, again, I think this kid's every bit as good as the kid from Notre Dame. This quarterback. I'm going to show you taking him downtown right here, but he's not. This guy's not scared to take shots either. So I mean, these guys hold up in pass pro. Again, they're rushing 3, so this is kind of like stealing versus kid. But I mean, he takes a deep shot, and these receivers aren't scared to go get it. So that's a 40-ish yard completion down to the 2-yard line. And, Nevada, who has to have their best game this week for Ohio State versus Maryland?
Well, I mean, your defensive backs are going to have to they're going to have to stand up. We're going to need Jordan Hancock and Denzel Burke and Davison to continue to play well. And I think for the Ohio State defense, that's clearly where it starts. The ability for those guys to kind of lock down the receivers allows the safeties to be a little bit more supportive in the run game. It allows for the defensive front four to play a little bit more responsibly, a little less dynamically, and allows Steele and Tommy and Cody to kind of flow to the ball. So I think it starts with those cornerbacks against a talented group of wide receivers for Maryland, and a quarterback likes to throw it. So those are the guys that are going to have a good game defensively, and offensively. I think it starts with Kyle McCord. Kyle McCord just has to continue to grow. If Kyle McCord has taken that last drive from Notre Dame and some of those big throws he made in that one, as well as during the game, and is like, look, he's playing like a man reborn, and now we're going to see the best version of Kyle. If he has his best game of the year, then we're going to win this game going away. But if he struggles, then this one could be a little bit more uncomfortable than we like it to be. So I'm rooting for Kyle to have a big one. Hope he continues the next step and continues the journey towards an undefeated season.
Yeah, I agree, and I love this. This is one more triple option look as we close this thing out. But you got your read option here, reading here. A lot of work going here. You got your tight end coming across. A lot of stuff on the eyes right here. Pulls it. This kid's got enough juice to get to the edge, and it's a race to the pylon. And if he gets there, he's getting the easy throw. He gets past the corner. Corner kind of gets caught peeking. Can't make up the ground, and it's an easy pitch and catch. But again, I like watching their offense because I think it's hard to defend. I don't think it's better than what we have, and I think we have much better players than they do. But they do some creative stuff. They believe in it. Again, they dropped 44 on Indiana, and Indiana's got a pretty decent defense, and they're kind of in a tailspin, I think, at this point because they fired their offensive coordinator. The head coach is probably on thin ice at this point, but. Maryland's got players. It's going to be a good challenge to get through. Nevada, another thing that's going on right now is this is tampering season in recruiting. This is one of those crazy things with the transfer portal. Guys aren't locked in like they used to be. A lot of guys aren't playing. You're through, 5, 6, 7 weeks for some teams in college football. Like you're getting through this part of the season. A lot of guys are kind of figuring out what their roles are. If they have a role, or a lot of guys don't have roles, or a lot of guys they're figuring out, I don't get to travel with the team to away games because I was left off the travel squad. So guys are getting hit up through back channels. What's it like now? Is this the craziest thing going on? And how hard does Ryan Day and his staff have to work to not only recruit kids in high school and potential kids in the transfer portal, but also keeping the kids on the roster right now?
Well, that's what you said. You've got to keep recruiting your own kids, and for other teams, you just start looking for where there's turmoil and where there's blood in the water, and that's where the Sharks are kind of circling right now. And you look at some of the teams across the country that are struggling, and man, the other major college teams are just poaching them like vultures right now and kind of going after them. And for us, you just want to keep your players. You don't want anybody to get Jagger LaRue and left home while they take him to on a trip, and he's upset and ends up transferring. But good thing Jagger's gone, so we don't have to have that situation happen again at Ohio State. But for Ohio State, they're looking. I mean, it's just so different. I mean, as a fan, you're used to the kind of the recruiting cycles of even now the early signing period and the late signing period and everything. But now with on-demand free agency, it's basically an open season at every school. And this is one area that Ohio State's got to get better because Ohio State's kind of been late to embrace this. And I think they're now just kind of getting into it because it's just not culturally. We haven't been a team that's tampered. We haven't been a team that's gone after other players. We haven't been a team that's thrown money around. When we did, it's always kind of been ham-handed. But now with NIL, now with the transfer portal, it's just part of the game, and it's you got to embrace it, otherwise you're going to get left behind. And I think Ohio State's getting better about it, and they're starting to circle Florida for sure, trying to see if they can pick off some of the bones on that. But there's some teams that are kind of circling the drain right now, and that's who you go after.
Yeah, like the Florida Gators are a perfect one because they probably won't fire Billy Napier this year, but after next year, he's probably gone. So kids that are in that class, like, well, this coach is on the hot seat. Like, is he going to be here? I mean, the odds of Billy Napier being, at Florida in 3 years are getting slimmer by the day. So, I mean, it makes sense to go after the Florida kids. I mean, there's a lot of these kids they're very flighty. I think that the thing that Ohio State, if I'm Ohio State and I'm recruiting, I'm saying, look, Ryan Day is here. He's extended. He loves it here. Our team is really good. Like, sell that versus, oh, you want to be a Florida Gator, but you might play for 3 different coaches in the 5 years you're there or whatever. So I think that's just an interesting thing. It'll be interesting to see. I think, obviously with Matt Jones moving on, I think you got a portal search for a guard. It'll be interesting to see what they do at quarterback. If they go after a portal quarterback, obviously McCord, is the guy, barring an injury. Devin Brown, I would bet a lot of money would likely portal. He's not going to sit around here for another year or two waiting for Kyle when he can go start somewhere next year. But it's going to be interesting to see if we get more aggressive, because I think we hit some home runs. Like Davidson's been an absolute home run. I thought Tywan Malone would be, more productive, but he hasn't been. But Jimmy Simmons has been good. I mean, he's been good at left tackle. It's a big growing curve, but he's a lot better week 4 than he was week 1, so that's good. He's developing. He still needs to get a lot stronger physically. He doesn't push guys around as much as I'd like. He's not as nasty as I'd like, but he's pass blocking great. Pass blocking in modern college football is like liquid gold. So these guys are doing a good job. Any final thoughts of that? We'll wrap this thing up and jump on the message board on BuckeyeScoop.com.
No, just Ohio State having a good week. Kind of addressing the things that they need to address, and I think they're going to be poised for a big effort on Saturday against a Maryland team that's going to create a lot of interesting scenarios for them, present a lot of interesting challenges. But I think Ohio State's on it. I think they've identified the issues along with the message board and general public community, and they're focusing on the things that I'd be focusing on, and seem to have fixes in the work, and that's good news.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. Well, I'm going to wrap this show up. As always, we appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys for joining us again. We appreciate all the growth in the channel. If you guys enjoy this content, please send it to your friends, all your Buckeye friends that enjoy some good college football news, some good Buckeye news, some inside information. It's what we bring to you guys every night on BuckeyeScoop.com. If you enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, and also click that little bell. It gives you a little alert when we go live. So we appreciate you guys each and every night joining us. If you guys are not members of BuckeyeScoop.com, now is the time to join, because I'm telling you, the site is cranking. It is fantastic. I've been on there all day. Really good days of work on BuckeyeScoop.com. And we got a big October coming. Maryland, Purdue, Penn State, Wisconsin. This is the month to join. Appreciate you guys as always. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I will see you guys tomorrow. Go Bucks.